Press start.
This is your reminder that it's okay to be excited. It's okay to be hyped, and we are here to get hyped with you. If you're not ready to be excited, if you just want us to crap all over the ideas of what this game might be, go watch another video. There's plenty of those. Look along the side of YouTube right now. There's plenty of recommendations. You can go get bummed. Go get bummed somewhere else. We're getting hyped in here, all right? So let's do this thing. Starfield hype check. Derek is the one who asked us this past week, do you guys want to do a hype check? This game's about to come out. So he put together some questions for us. We're going to dive right into them. But again, only stick around if you're ready to get excited, because that's what we're doing. All right, so Derek, help us with this hype, the Starfield
Plot
hype
twist.
check.
This is actually a Bethesda shit-a-thon.
That's right.
I'm just here to destroy every
if
Bethesda
you stuck
game.
around, this is
They're
actually
trash.
a
They are the worst. They were great when they were on
play-
PlayStation consoles. Now that they're exclusive, they are literally. I mean, did they even
all
release
play
a good
horribly
game?
now.
Fallout
Yeah.
4 more like Fallout Bore, am I right,
Yeah,
guys?
I know.
Oh, man.
Skyrim more like Sky's stupid piece of crap game. That's
That rolls right off the tongue. Absolutely, that one.
All right, so like Tim said, the whole point of this is kind of like just to go through and talk about this game, see where we're at and our thoughts. I thought it would be a different thing. We usually do our podcast when we're more reactionary, like, hey, we played it, now let's talk about it. I thought it'd be exciting to like maybe talk about what our level of excitement is going into the game, and then see on the podcast what our reactions are. So let's kick it off. Question 1, what is your level of excitement for Starfield? You can score it if you want, 1 to 10, 1 being obviously you don't give a crap and why are you even on this show, and 10, you're ridiculously excited and you have too high of expectations and you will be pissed next week when we record the show.
Yeah.
Those are your options. There's no in between. You have to be 1 or 10.
Oh, okay. Okay.
oh,
There's two
no,
numbers.
one or,
wants
it's
to
not
start?
1,
Let's
2,
kick
10,
it
it's
off.
1 or 10. Okay,
Let's
gotcha.
kick it off with Kyle. I would deem you of the 4 of us. Wait, am I counting right? Yeah, the 4 of us. Dan's not here. I would deem you probably the biggest Bethesda Studios fan. So if you want to,
It sounds gross coming out of your mouth. Even like that's
Yeah,
true.
don't
I'm like,
say
oh,
that.
I don't know about that. Yeah, because that does come with something. But yeah, I would say I'm Skyrim, Fallout. Like these are the types of games that I like to play. Those are like my style of video game. So I'm very aware this is going to be a space flavored, version of that, which is I'm totally fine with, and that's what I'm signing up for. So yeah, I'm at a 10, but I'm not going to be mad. Not going to be mad at myself next week about how hyped I am, because I'm a grown adult and I can check them right before I walk in the door and not come out mad at myself for fictitious weird reasons that I've created on myself. But yeah, I'm super hyped for it, and I think that like pieces of me believe it when Todd Howard says this is going to be our least glitchiest game. But I think as we were joking in chat, I was like, I kind of hope it's still a little janky.
I think there'll probably be fun, like glitches.
Like I wouldn't mind getting hit out of a planet, into a loading screen, or something like that, As I'm like flying into space.
Like the
yeah,
dude
that
in 2001 who gets unplugged and he's just going like this, and it's like a '60s movie, so it looks really horrible. And he's
I wouldn't mind
floating
like
around.
if I die, like you just float off like super fast, like unrealistic.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be pretty
But
cool.
just to move it along, I'm at a 10. I'm shaking.
All right, cool.
I'm so hyped. It's a big deal for me.
I think I'm at a 9 because I'm not a big Bethesda fan, but everything about this game looks like something I'm going to absolutely love. And it's the first new IP from Bethesda, if I got this right, and I think 25 plus years, maybe. Does that sound about right?
I think that's
Yeah, because they've just been releasing
25 years of
sequel after
Skyrim.
sequel
Yeah.
after sequel.
Basically.
Yeah, basically.
Skyrim and Fallout. And so, no, it's something that everything about it is just like, I'm going to like this. I think. So we'll see, but my hype is very high, much higher than it normally would be for a publisher and developer who I don't usually go all in on, like a lot of folks do. But this one, I don't know, man, it's checking all the boxes, all the previews. They're just saying all the right things to me. So I'm at a 9.
Okay, cool. Jeff,
you would think I'd be at a 10, considering I think I'm the only one that among this podcast, including Dan, that got the collector's edition with the smartwatch on it.
Mm-hmm.
But for the game itself, I'm more hyped for the smartwatch,
Just
honestly.
because you're
I'm a watch
collector.
slut.
Please,
Yeah, I really am.
Yeah.
yeah, please check out our podcast about watches.
Watch.
the
Current
audio
watch.
one.
Watchcast, yeah.
Yep.
Well, I'm for the game itself. For the whole experience, it's really like a 10. But like for the game, it's like 9 because it's kind of like what Tim said. Except I don't know how much Tim has played of like Skyrim and Fallout. A
Probably
lot.
combined like 4 hours of.
Yeah, that's the same as me then. Okay. So yeah, see, this is my first one kind of starting ground level where I'm like, I am actually hyped because it's sci-fi. It's like my favorite genre of type, my favorite type of game. Having just beaten the Mass Effect series, like whenever that remastered edition came out in 2020 or 2021, whatever. So I'm like, and I like Star Trek. So like you're checking a lot of boxes here.
Yeah.
In this whole game. So I'm very hyped to play it. But in terms of what would be a 10, Spider-Man 2 is a 10. Like that's a game I
Okay.
I'm
know.
with you there.
I know I will play many times. Like I will
Yeah.
beat it and
Yeah.
replay it over and over. This one I don't. There's a question mark, so I can't definitively say 10. But like 9 for sure. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
What do you got,
Alright.
I know 9 is low. 9 means I hate it. So yeah.
It's on a 10. So
So then maybe I'm probably on this podcast, I'm probably the second biggest fan because while I never really got into Elder Scrolls that much, like I played a lot of Skyrim and stuff like that, but it's one that if you go back to old school like Beyond, I was that guy that was like Skyrim's overrated because I hated the combat. But I'm a huge Fallout fan. Like Fallout is my shizit. Like that's one of those games. That's probably one of the first open world RPG games where I Fallout 3 and then obviously 4. Oh, and New Vegas. Let's not forget
Oh,
New
yeah.
Vegas. Which
I'm
is
such a
great.
Fallout fan, Derek, that I played 170 something hours of Fallout 76. So, yeah,
I did play that, but not 176
Horrible
hours or
video
whatever.
Never
game,
forget
just
that
FYI.
my brother and
Such
especially my dad are bigger Fallout fans than anybody here because they play
Yeah.
like thousands of hours.
I've heard the hour counts. It's crazy.
Yes.
So I'm a big fan of Fallout, and
Yeah.
that's where my
This is
hype
more
for
Fallout
this.
than Skyrim, so that makes sense.
Yeah,
It
I
is.
would say
there's
so,
two
yeah.
things that I like about this game, or what I'm seeing of this game. One, it does seem to be more lean towards like a Fallout style with the guns. Plus, the videos I watch, the gameplay looks just so much more improved. Like I feel like, granted, it has been 25 years since they released like a new IP, and they've gotten a lot of feedback. And when's the last time they actually released the game? Was it Skyrim, which would be like 10 plus years?
Bethesda?
Fallout 4.
Fallout 4 was probably.
No, sorry, Fallout
Yeah,
4.
76 was done by a different studio.
Yeah, so
but yeah,
Fallout 4 was 5-6 years ago.
something like that.
So-
When the shooting in that's a little better than 3, or a lot better than 3, I think this
It
will obviously
is.
be a lot better than Fallout 4. I
And
would
even
hope so.
That's what
Fallout
it
4,
looks
like
like.
I know,
you can just
I know
tell.
they brought in id Software for Fallout 4, so that was where I was like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be like freaking Doom or something like that. And then
Wolfenstein.
clearly it wasn't at that level, but
Mm-mm.
they got that feedback too. So I really think this is gonna be a really good shooter
All right.
RPG. I get the vibe of like
The
Mass
shooting
Effect
looks very
or something.
competent to me,
Yeah,
even at 30
I-
frames per second.
So you're at a 4, is what I'm hearing you say.
Absolutely. Fallout 4. So I started like decently, but as actually it was the show where Microsoft had the after show where it was just
Yeah.
strictly Starfield, and I watched that whole thing, and I went from like, I don't want to say it was like a low number because I wasn't down on the game, but I wasn't really focusing on it. I was focused on other stuff, and when I saw that, I was like, oh, I kind of want to buy the collector's edition, but I don't like to watch. That's the only reason why. Like, it got me to that level where I would have spent $300 on the game because I was like, I think this is going to be legit, like one of the best games to come out this year. And this year, we've already talked about it on the podcast. We don't need to re
Yeah,
go
there's
over
nothing
that,
out
but
this year. Yeah.
there's nothing that came out, so of course it should win that. But anyway, so my level would probably, I would say a 9. I'm not gonna say I tell everybody in the chat it's a 10, but realistically it's probably a 9. There's a lot of excitement. I am gonna play it on PC, so I shouldn't have to, in theory, have to worry about the 30 frames per second, so I can stay out of that conversation with people when they. Ultimately, I think that's one of the things people will bitch about. They'll find a reason to complain. But let's move on to the next one. I wanted to know, for those who have done their research and have really started to hype themselves on this game, what are you most excited about? Start there, and then if you naturally, organically flow into what are your concerns? Like, what are the things that you've seen, or the things that you potentially think could be like, oh, I'm not going to like this, or this is going to be bad. So whoever wants to start, we don't have to go in a specific order. So what are you most excited for? And then again, what are your biggest concerns for this launch of this game?
My excitement's mostly on exploration, because I've heard this is pretty much No Man's Sky. That's all it is, and so I'm excited for that. I'm kidding. I know it's not that, but that's what I
Literally No
love.
Man's Sky. Yeah.
But that's what I loved about No Man's Sky. That's what I loved about playing Valheim. That's what I loved about a lot of these big open world games. Zelda, like when they do it right, it makes every corner that you finally uncover so worth it. That's why Elden Ring was my favorite game last year. It's just the exploration was like one of the top experiences in all those games. So that's what I'm most excited for, is exploring and finding new things and new corners, new missions, new items, whatever. And then a few of the other gameplay elements do sound fun, but I'll leave that to in case any of you want to highlight those. But for me, it's all about exploration, finding something new. I am, in that same vein, a little concerned. Will it actually feel as fun to explore as I hope that it does, as I think it does? Because there are plenty of open world games on the flip side of that, where they tell you to explore, they give you a huge open world, and yet it is boring to wander around. Like they don't really give you good reasons to. And as much as I loved, for example, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, that's a good example of it. Beautiful world, really interesting elements, but they didn't really make me love exploring.
Agreed.
They did in other games. So anyway,
I don't even think there was a reason to explore.
Not really. There was these little blue glowy dots all over the map, but anyway, they didn't do it as well as they have done in other games, and how, as I mentioned earlier, there's other games who have done it super well. I'm hopeful that Starfield just really nails it, and I'm looking forward to that.
I'll say I'm looking forward to the most ship customization, because I'm just a fucking nerd. Sorry, I didn't mean to cross the R.
Yeah, you did.
You did.
Okay, I did. Fucking did.
We're no longer a PG.
True.
When Tim and I were just podcasting, we were definitely PG.
Well, I was.
But
I was better back then. I was in my youth.
Yeah, you were better. You were better.
So I'm stoked for the ship customization, especially because playing a game like Jedi, well, both of the Jedi games, Survivor and Fallen Order, where like there is a customization element in Fallen Order, but it's just colors and stuff. But this is like nitty gritty, dude. This is Fallout level customization of your ship, where it's like furniture and the shape of it and like just tiny things. Like,
make a penis ship, aren't you?
I'm gonna make a dick ship. Yeah.
There's gonna be so many ships.
So many dick ships. Oh my god. I would be most curious to make a flaccid one. See what a flaccid one looks like, where I can make the tip like
flaccid one.
Wow, yeah.
I've already thought this out, guys. I'm doing the math in my head already. No, but for real, I'm pretty stoked about that. And yeah, the only thing I would kind of be like, curious if they can nail that. Not really concerned about it, but I'm just curious if they can nail it. It's just the general scope of the game. Like how they're advertising how many planets you can go to, which the number has kind of fluctuated at least like maybe twice, not that many times, compared to some other studios that might be like, no, you're going to be able to go to this many planets, and then by the time release comes out, so you're going to be able to go to 4 planets. Sorry, guys, it's not like that. But I'm just saying that the scope is still pretty large. That I'm like, oh, that sounds maybe a little too ambitious. So I'm just curious about that, and it falls into exploration is what I'm talking about specifically. Like how are you going to be able to do all that stuff? But I mean, that's just more like, and do it well. That's just more like, I just got to play it and find out, that's all it is.
Yeah. All right. Kyle, you?
I think that they're really, these games are really known not about the main story. Like the main story is just kind of there in these games. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad, like in Skyrim and Fallout and stuff like that. But the real meat and potatoes are always like the clans that you join up with or the side. Like they always have like the best stories. So like in Skyrim you had all the different guilds and stuff like that. And in Fallout you had all the different factions. And going through those stories and companion stories, I think that's going to be a lot of fun. And I like that crafted stuff. But yeah, I think the thing I'm most excited for is the stuff Tim was talking about, is that sense of discovery, which I think Skyrim and Fallout both kind of nail, where it's like when you walk into a room, there's something happened, there's a story or whatever. Maybe there's some set dressing going on. There's a note nearby that kind of, someone's last words or whatever, there's all that stuff that kind of just, turns the game or that, at least that room or area, into a living, breathing thing that you just walked into. So that's the stuff I'm most excited for. How much of that do they pepper in? You could turn on Skyrim today and it still randomizes missions, that are, that you may have never seen before. So you'll go into a cave that you've been into, maybe 1,000 times, but now there's a new thing down there or whatever. And I'm just imagining what that looks like with 10 years new of like tinkering technology and stuff like that. Especially because they say a lot of this stuff is procedural in this game. It's specifically the planets that are a little more desolate and stuff. I think they just kind of let algorithms kind of make all that. So interested to see what else is kind of crafted by that. Concerns wise, there's like 1,000 something planets.
Yeah.
You know, unless you're really, really, really into
And they're not
crafting.
procedural, I don't think, right? Like they are actually created, aren't they?
I thought the planets were procedural. I thought.
Oh, are they?
I thought that was the part that was procedural, but the core planets are not. Yeah, they're handcrafted.
Got it. Okay.
There's certain number that like where you would fully explore where they're trying to tell stories.
And that number may be
like
in the hundreds. It may not
so
be.
there's
going to
be main
I
planets
think it was
and
pretty
then a bunch
high.
of
I think
there's like main planets and there's your ancillary planets are just there for like getting minerals and rare materials and stuff. So if like you're not interested in crafting or upgrading your ship or any of that stuff, you know, like I can see that stuff being such an afterthought to everybody. But so I'm going to be interested to see like just how much they make everything feel necessary and how that all gels.
Agreed.
Okay.
Oh, and I hope the ship combat plays better than Everspace 2.
From Gamescom, I hear
the
that
bar right now.
That was the thing that people were talking about the most, is that the space combat's awesome.
Yes.
That's what I want to hear.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Derek, what about you?
I would say, okay, so what I was trying to say is that I actually liked Fallout 3 and 4's stories. I thought actually they both had like nice twists, which is what I'm into. Like I always remember the twists of games. So that's usually what makes me go, "Oh, I like story." So one of my things I'm most excited about is seeing what if they try to do like a more, I don't know, really throw themselves into telling a really good story, or if they are kind of like what you guys are talking about. They know their identity and they're like, hey, we're just create your own stories, explore. You're on this journey, and then we'll have this like campaign that kind of matters, but not really. I'm really hoping that they'll have a full-fledged campaign. Like obviously,
they've talked about it enough where
do.
it seems like it's important. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I want. Like for me, again, I promise we won't sit here and just talk about Baldur's Gate. But what makes it special is it isn't as big. There's obviously a lot of areas to explore, but it's really dense and there's a ton of stories. But there is a overarching main plot that is awesome. So you have all these subplots, you have all these sub stories, you have all this exploration you could do, but there is an overarching, interesting main narrative that I really, really like. That actually makes it hard to want to flesh everything out because you're like, well, I want to see how this plays out.
Yeah.
So I'm curious if Starfield and if Bethesda is going to do that with this, if it's just going to be, you know, same thing they kind of did prior, where it's like that's kind of back burner. We want to focus on the things, or are they going to be like, hey, we know we can do this other stuff really good. We're going to make it bigger. We're going to do all that stuff, but let's get a writing team in here. Let's figure out how to make this main story from beginning to end extremely well done, and also have like kind of like what Kyle was talking about. You have these companions. You have all these guilds and stuff like that. How can you get them to fit into the main narrative? Because that was kind of why I was bringing up Baldur's Gate 3 is everybody in the world matters to the main narrative, even if you think it's optional or it's not.
And that feels good. Like very few games I think have ever pulled that off, where it's just like everything
it's
kind
like,
of connects.
How do you do that? And I'm not expecting Bethesda to do that. That they never sold me on that. I'm just saying I would love to see maybe an emphasis.
Yeah, but their platform or the way that they do their games is built for that type of success. It'd be interesting if that was actually in this. That would be really cool.
Yeah, even what is it? The Outer Worlds. I feel like they do that really well, and that would be even more comparative because I feel like that game was a little bit bigger as far as planets and obviously the style of game and things like that. They did it really well. So that's kind of what I'm hinting at is like I would love if I felt like it wasn't just, hey, only thing I remember is exploring a lot, and then I was looking for my dad and stuff like that, and then there's a plot twist at the end, that's cool, but I don't remember anything else.
Hope you find your dad.
Fallout
that
and
type of
Fallout
stuff.
4 is just you're looking for your son, you know.
Yeah.
Like, they just
So
flipped it.
I'm interested to see that. As far as concerns, honestly, from what and I'm an easy sell. I've never tried to pretend like I'm a hard sell. There's nothing that they showed me that I was like, oh, I'm worried about this. I'm worried about that. For me, maybe it's getting like anxiety of like, there's too much. Where do I go from here?
Okay.
So as long
Yeah.
as they do a good job of like, hey, bro, which I think they've said this, and I'm sure Kyle's watched something on this where they've said, hey, don't worry about like, you can focus on the main story. You're not going to be lost in that. You can do that if you want to do that.
Yeah,
but
apparently you can just look at a planet and like it'll be like, hey, there's main missions here.
That's what
You
I
know?
want. Like,
Yeah,
Baldur's
yeah.
Gate does that, where it's like there's a lot going on and there's a lot of missions in there, so
Yeah,
it's very
yeah.
confusing.
You're
But
gonna
it'll tell you,
know
it'll
if you're
say this
landing on a
area is
desolate planet
this
or
and this area is that, but you can explore all around it if you want. So that's my concern was like, am I gonna get overwhelmed or can I follow something if I make the decision like, dude, this has been great for 40 hours, but I just want to mainline the campaign because I've got other games coming out and I want to just play the campaign.
I'm just glad you found a different game to compare everything to.
No.
Yeah, this
So-
is a good one.
It's
Dragon
Dragon Age
Age
anymore.
Inquisition.
No.
Yeah,
This
new
is the
Next
Dragon
on the
Age
docket.
Inquisition of space games.
The one I thought you were going to say, Derek, was I thought you were going to talk about combat. You were concerned that what if the shooting doesn't quite feel right? Then you're going to want to play this game, but the combat's not quite there.
No, see, I feel like what they've shown me looks really good.
It does look good.
Every trailer, every gameplay moment I've seen, I never looked at it and went. In fact, I think Digital Foundry released a video recently, it might have been today, where they were reacting and they weren't allowed to show it, but they were watching it because I think what I'm forgetting his name, Todd Howard wanted to set the record straight because there was people already, you know how it is, game's not out, but people are talking as if they already played the game. But Todd Howard wanted to set the record straight that it's not like the movements aren't weird, like it's not glitchy or anything, like it's a smooth experience, because that was being dramatized online. And so Digital Foundry, I don't think they were allowed to show the footage, but they were allowed to watch it and react. And they were like, guys, what Todd Howard's saying is true. Game runs smooth, even at 30 frames per second. It's not.
And they'll
glitchy.
always tell you if it's not too. Like that's
Yeah.
So I give you a hard time about the Baldur's Gate comparison, but I'm only teasing. Like as I'm getting deeper and deeper into that game, I'm just kind of like, man, The Witcher 3 did this too. Like they're setting my expectations for what side quests and characters and
Witcher 3 is one of the games that definitely
it's one of those
weave
games.
everything
Yeah.
into each other. Yeah.
Everything's important. Everyone's interesting. That voice acting for the most part is pretty good. So anyway, it's setting that standard pretty high. So as I explore, I'm not saying I'm expecting it to be the same across every game, but for Starfield, my expectations, my hype levels are so high. I guess I'm a little concerned that I maybe have I don't want to over expect something that it's not. So I'm trying to keep my expectations in check, that it's not trying to be the thing that you're hoping it is.
That's why I pretty much just watched the when Microsoft did their showcase, their not E3 showcase, and they had the Starfield presentation after. That's the only thing I've watched so far. Like I know they've done several videos.
That was the thing to watch. I feel like that was the turning point.
And I was like, well,
story.
I'm already like, by the time they finished, I was like, well, then I'm completely sold. I'll lay down way too much money for the smartwatch edition, and I never looked back. I'd never even looked at any new stuff, any new headlines.
That's how I am, and that's why I'm I think I'm in the dark on the story stuff.
Yeah, same.
Because I'm like, is there a story? I mean, I know he talked about it, like he said, there's a main story. It's good, blah blah blah. But I'm like, has anybody else watched stuff? Do we have more details? Because that was actually my next question. Mm-hmm. What do you think the Starfield story is going to entail? The main campaign.
And I like, let's combine it with, will it be good overall game and story too? I'm curious. Like, I like your question. Will it be good? Yeah. So
I know the story is somewhat about your character like finds a relic and it's very Mass Effect and touches it and has some sort of connection to something. So like
you're special.
So you're special or something like that, you know. But like, are we here to? I mean, is it going to be an alien twist? Like, I don't know. I've got no idea. Is it like Interstellar, where it was us in the future sending us back love or whatever?
We sent ourselves, Mom.
I'm interested to see like where that goes off, because like this game doesn't scream space opera. You know what I mean? I don't think halfway through it we're going to be like talking to aliens. It's not going to turn into Mass Effect or anything like that. Like you're always going to be interacting with humans. You're going to see alien like wildlife, you know, but like I don't think it's going to be like in you know,
it's not suddenly an Alex Garland sci-fi movie.
Right. Maybe that's the twist
half.
at the end. You meet some sort of AI or source or something like that. I don't know. But that's what's cool about sci-fi is that like we can go into some really interesting directions.
Just diddle.
Yeah. Press F to diddle.
Don't keep changing what fingers you're using.
No, that was too.
That was not good.
Block that. Blur that, editor.
Yeah, I gotta put a big blur on Jeff's face.
For those that are audio only, just stick to that.
Yes.
So yeah, I am excited to see what more, because I don't think we know much about the story outside of that. And you join this club called Constellation, who are like the last living explorers. Everyone else is kind of like settled down, like in space, you know, and like Constellation really wants to like unlock the mysteries of why things are the way that they are, and I don't know what that means, and I think that's going to be really interesting. It's a good foundation to springboard an interesting story off of if they took the time to tell it. So
yeah.
Do you think it will be good? And what I mean by that is, like you mentioned earlier, like, hey, the main plots are fine, but that's not their main thing. They want you to explore, create your own stories. But do you think they are going to improve how they tell stories? I think that
they're always competent. So I think we're going to at least get a competent story. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And in terms of like the story takes you all across the map. It takes you to some interesting places. There's some interesting dialogue, maybe an interesting villain, maybe an interesting reveal like Fallout, you know? But, you know, maybe it's not the thing that you think about when you're talking best story at the end of the year or the end of the generation or whatever.
So you're not increasing your expectation or hype in that area.
I'm leaving some room to be excited and surprised. I'll for sure say. Yeah, absolutely. Because I think that he's dropped enough hints to say that like they cared about like telling a story this time and unraveling a mystery, you know. But that could mean his mini stories or whatever, you know. That could mean the 1,000 stories that are in this game.
I think
Who
that's
knows
why
what
my
Todd
hype
Howard
isn't
really
quite
means.
at a 10 is because I'm not sure how captivated it'll be by characters in the story. And part of me is like, I'm okay if it's actually just middling and the rest of it's a blast. But that's where my hype level is mostly just I'm excited to play. And I think I don't really have a good reason for that other than I keep seeing quotes like the game starts after the main quest line ends. Like that's where the real meat of the game is. And they're trying to like get you hyped up for how much more you can keep playing and exploring even after the. So I understand that, but I'm also kind of like, oh, so like is the main quest really not all that great?
They're usually short, you know, in terms of hour count too in all these games. Like if you wanted to blast through all the stories of Fallout 3, 4, Skyrim, Oblivion, like, you know, under 20 hours really. You know, but like it is all the extra stuff. So I mean, you got a lot of people who never even played the main story. They never even roll credits. They just like do all the guild stuff and
I never beat Skyrim. Fallout 3, Fallout 4, Fallout New Vegas, absolutely. I wanted to see how those games played out, but like Skyrim, most of my hours were just like, oh, well, let me go look at that over there. I tried to. That was like, I always like to finish my game so I can say I finished it, but I was like, after like the first few hours, I was like, I'm not interested in this mumble jumble of I don't even know what you're talking about anymore.
Right. Well, how cool of a feeling will it be if suddenly none of us can tear away from the story? Like that's the thing that all of us really like.
That's what I want.
What I mean? Like how cool would that be? Where it's just like, boy, I want to go and stay in this city, but it's telling me to haul off because we need to go chase this relic or whatever, and I'm super interested in seeing what this is like. I feel like that's going to be awesome if the story feels so compelling that I'm ignoring everything else, you know.
I love that this is reading this while we're just talking. I love that this is kind of Todd Howard's baby compared to all the other Bethesda games because he's been trying to make this for 25 years. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
he was even trying to do a Star Trek thing and couldn't get the rights. He wanted to do a role playing game for Star Trek and it wouldn't get approved. So that was in the 2000s. So he's been dying to do this game for a long time. That kind of gives me a little bit more like hope for its quality, at least.
More of a passion
I wonder
project.
if that was.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought I remember hearing something like where it was like he just knew they were limited by power, and now.
Well, yeah, now they have their new engine. This is the new Bethesda engine. So like this is the first game with the new Bethesda engine, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's looking gorgeous, by the way.
It's a good looking game. Yeah, those sunsets when they're doing those time lapses, they're breathtaking.
Oh my gosh, forget about it.
Well, speaking of the visuals, Derek, you have the question here. Do you think it will have bugs? Which might feel like a funny question about a Bethesda game, but we're hearing some things very positive in that, right? What do you guys think for bugs? Derek, what do you think for the bugs in this game?
I still think we're gonna have them. I don't think it will be as frequent because, again, maybe I'm just an idiot who just believes everything that developers. But I want to believe all of them want
Such a
to
mark.
be better. Yeah.
Hey yo.
I want to believe that they
yo.
all want to be better. So, like, when a certain developer or publisher is picked on for certain things, I want to believe that they go, okay, let's have a meeting. Let's figure this crap out. We're tired of getting picked on for this. Like, let's do better. And
I hope so.
again, this is not a game that's been rushed. I understand the scope is way bigger, and there is the chance of more and more things going wrong.
I think that when you have a game this big, things have to go wrong. That's just like part of the
Yeah.
nature of the beast. You can't.
It's like I was saying, I don't
test
know if I said it
everything.
on the podcast, but like whenever you're like in the IT side of things, whenever you go in to like fix something, like even if you're patching something, there's a high risk that what you're patching is getting fixed, but you're at the same time altering something else that's now broken that you're unaware of unless you do, extreme
I've
testing.
literally never had that happen in my 10 years of IT.
I
Never had that happen one
Don't
time.
think
It's-
you've probably
I have
ever
a
had that.
perfect
I
track
don't
record.
relate- I don't
Every
relate to
patch
this.
you've ever,
I
every
am
fix,
I am
every,
perfect.
because you're
I am-
like
I am
literally you
perfect.
just implement it and you're like, let's just reboot, and the
Yeah.
reboot fixes everything.
Well, even more than
Usually,
just that, even more than like your source, your base code for the game. Now you have to consider every device that this is going to run on,
Yeah.
and all the different combinations of pieces that they're going to have that are going to be powering this thing for that particular user. What screen they're going to be using. Like, there's so many. I saw it with Baldur's Gate 3 where it didn't load up right now. I was like, this game is ugly. What happened? It was just my own experience installing
Yeah.
the game. I don't know what happened. Who knows? My internet might have just locked up while it installed, or like, who knows what happened. And so like everyone's going to have a slightly different experience. You're going to have like the Assassin's Creed Unity moment where it's just eyeballs floating for maybe a couple people, and then that'll go viral. Like I feel like the answer to that is, of course there's going to be some element of bugs. Even in the most flawless games we've seen this year, there have been moments like, all right, well, that's a one-off anecdote, but that's crazy that happened to that person in
Right.
whether it's Zelda or Baldur's Gate or whatever it
Jedi
is.
Survivor was like
Jedi Survivor.
Grand
had
Theft
so many
Auto
problems with
5,
that
when
one.
it came out, they had bugs, lots of them. You know what I mean? And that's considered like one of the best in the biz with open world games.
But the way I usually approach things, speaking of like in the work world, is you try to make sure it works most of the time for most of your user types. You identify all your different user types. What's the most common graphics card being used and processor being used? And you make sure that it's buttoned up for that stuff. And then the weird combinations of stuff, you try to tackle if you have time. Otherwise, that's kind of like, we'll patch it if there's problems with those. Like you can't have every tester go through the game from start to finish and poke every corner of that game with every possible PC setup is all I'm saying.
That's a good point.
So
I think
there's going to be some.
My joke answer is I hope there are bugs because that's the Bethesda experience. But
I do like them. I got to be honest, I do. They're charming. They are charming in a way that it's not in other games.
But I feel like this new engine, this creation engine 2, I think it's called, is like really it has to be what's coming through for them in terms of like what we're seeing in articles today or recently, where people are like, yeah, the bugs are just not as present as I thought they'd be. Which
it
is
depends
saying
on what the bugs are, right?
True.
Yeah.
Like if
but
it's
I mean,
like
for people
Cyberpunk
that
where
are,
it's a cutscene and a guy's holding a gun and it's pointing the other way and he's supposed to be pointing it at you or whatever.
I still see
a lot of that.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
T-pose glitches are funny. It's still funny to me. It always will be. I still see.
Well,
in
and I
Cyberpunk,
also think to you guys' point, like right now, what do you have? Like, am I not working correctly?
No, you're good.
No, you're good.
I was just T-posing.
Yeah.
Oh, I was like, oh crap, I'm talking, and they're like, great, he's but like to you guys' point, like the general discussion now is that wow, there's really not that many bugs, or there's none at all. My experience has been great for the game I'm playing, not playing, but that's what, a couple hundred people, maybe 1,000 max. Once you get 1 million to 2-3 million, however many copies is, well, honestly, it's on Game Pass too. That can make things even worse. You're gonna have a large audience. There's going to be somebody or somebody's that's gonna run into stuff, and that, like Tim was saying, that is gonna get exposed. And there's a lot of people that, and this isn't a Sony pony bashing session. I always bash them on our podcast, but like the ponies. But like there are people that want this to fail. and they are
Oh,
going
yeah.
to exploit it. They are
Jesus.
going to
Yeah.
broadcast anything that was like, oh, that happened? Okay, let's act like every
Mhm.
version of this game is like this, and it's just complete trash. It's a dumpster fire. It's because Xbox is running the show, blah blah blah. So I do think you're gonna see stuff. I'm just hoping, like, the majority of games that I've heard people say, I've got problems, I've got problems. I don't know if I'm just special. I rarely run into issues. I rarely, whether it's PC, console, most games, even problem child games, I'm like, this is running fine. And maybe it's because I'm not super picky. Like, if something like slows down or stutters, like, I play games. I'm not going to mention the name of it. I'm playing one now that stutters a lot, especially in Act 3. And I'm like, okay, this is very
Oh, Dragon
noticeable.
Age. Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
Dragon Age. Yeah.
it's very, very noticeable, and it's very, very annoying. But I also know why it's happening. It's because no other part in the game has had this many people on it. So uh, I
Yeah.
get why it's happening. So I'm like, all right, I'll just lower my settings so it'll run a little bit smoother. But for the most part, most games, I don't have issues that other people talk about. So I'm hoping my experience is going to be clean. I do think, again, like I was saying off the top, this is something they've been picked on. I know a lot of people, including Kyle, Jeff, you guys say, I like Bethesda bugs. They've never bothered me. I've never played one where I was like, game's broken. And I've had like instances where like I've died in weird ways and I was like, what's going on? Or traversing a mountain was like really awkward and just it didn't make any sense the way they were doing it. So I've had those things, but they never really bothered me. I don't personally like look forward to it. Like, I'm not like, oh, I like that. That gives it, like that's what Bethesda games are. But I also know I'm not going to cry unless it's like you broke my save
Yeah.
or I'm playing the
Yeah, I mean,
game
there's
and it.
plenty of that, yeah, that did break my, Bethesda's known for like having like items in pouches, and when you go to the pouch, there's no item in it, like that's a
Ah,
classic
Gotcha.
Bethesda like whoopsie, for
Like a
quests. So you can't get the quest,
container
so you
bugs.
just can't, you just can't get that, you can't finish that quest at all. You're just gonna move on and do something else.
I tell you,
Gotcha.
if there was a game breaking or save breaking something, I feel like people would have been quietly and then loudly
Yeah.
whispering about it. Like, I feel like we would have. There's so
Yeah,
many
me
copies in
too.
the wild right
Well,
now. I feel like we would hear it.
and this is the other thing is like, when you think about Skyrim, like Skyrim is thought as today, it's millions of copies sold, it's one of the greatest games of all time, yada yada. Like its legacy is very positive, but when that game came out on PlayStation, it was a mess. So
Oh,
what I'm
that's
trying
right.
to
Oh
bring
yeah,
up
yeah,
is
yeah.
Bethesda's really good at fixing the issue.
The
You know what I mean?
PS3.
Yeah,
Right?
for PS3.
Yes,
Yeah, they're
yes,
really good at
yes.
fixing the issue and securing the legacy that they're looking for. So like,
Yeah.
I think that when they get harped on for like, oh, their games are so messy or whatever, yeah, maybe that to some people who are playing them or whatever, but they also fix them, and we don't look back on Skyrim and talk about the backwards flying dragons. Like, that's kind of just a fun memory we all have now. When you look at it, you look at the sales numbers and how successful it is. So it's
Yeah.
like, Bethesda is good at fixing their games, and they are good at listening to the community and stuff like that. And they open things up as quick as they can to modders, so the modders can fix stuff too. And then we will get that stuff later because Bethesda will publish those mods and put it into their games, and now we just get cool community-made stuff that kind of forever changes the game and spruce up the game over the years. So
What do you think will be the first thing? A Star Trek mod or a everyone is nude mod?
that one.
Yeah, whichever is the more perverse one. That one.
It's gonna happen.
The second
immediately.
one will be an all Star Trek nude mod. So
Oh, okay, that's a
it
good
won't even
point.
be Star Trek next. It'll be
Yeah, got it.
The
Yeah, no, I
nudity
think
comes
it's-
first, then the clothes come after. That's what happens.
It's obviously gonna have some bugs that you guys are talking about, but for me, I'll just laugh at all the complaints unless there's a bug that kind of just is like, I can't get past this part of the game, or it truly made me like, I don't know, whether it's lose a save or I don't even want to play this anymore because this part of it is so bad with the technical whatever. And I don't
Mhm.
anticipate that happening. Remember, this game was supposed to come out,
Yeah.
it was given a release window a long time ago, and then that was bumped, and then that was bumped, and that like
Yeah.
this game keeps, kept. Now you could make an argument, well, that's a bad sign. That means they keep finding problems. Okay, maybe, or they've been cleaning it up to the point where they're like, we're never going to release a game that gets trashed on like the other one. Like, this is our first new IP in 25 years. We're going to get it right. I like to
Yeah.
think that's what's
I
happening.
also
Yeah.
think,
Yeah.
and I could
Great.
be remembering wrong, but
Remember, this is hype, so we're staying positive here.
Yeah, but I think a lot of their issues were on PlayStation platforms. I'm not saying there never was a
Oh, there you
bug on
go.
a
There it
Microsoft
is.
platform,
Jimmy Ryan's fault. Where's
Yeah.
Dan?
but there was a lot of issues on the PS3 with Fallout 3. There was
Oh, I didn't know
issues
that.
with Skyrim. There was a lot of issues. They struggle. They've always had a close knit relationship with Microsoft.
Yeah.
So-
Well, the Sony years were because of the cell process. Those were just like
Yeah.
classically hard to dev
Yep.
on, and for whatever reason, Bethesda games did not play well with those
Oh.
cell processors on the PS3.
So I don't think we'll have we shouldn't have any of those glaring this game's completely broken.
Spaceships are flying backwards or whatever.
You know, they know what their PC they've been working on PC games for a long time, so they already know what they're getting in with PC. But they also have they only have to work on Series X and Series S, and some of the positive stuff that I've heard is that Series S runs really, really well, and that's been the big shocker. Is
That's
people
cool.
that own Series S and are playing it on there are like, how did they get this game to
They're
run
not getting
this
an
well?
afterthought version. They really got that thing cooking
kind of
on
how
that
we
thing.
are with Tears of the Kingdom. How are we playing this on a Switch? Is kind of what it seems like a lot of the feedback's been with the Series S. How did they get this game to run and look so good on the Series S when other developers and other games have been,
I would love it if they
afterthought?
find a way with a character or a moment to kind of make a joke about something being glitchy or buggy or something like that. And if they're
a
able
character called Glitch,
yeah,
and,
some kind of self-deprecating wink wink would be, or if a ship is flying backwards and it's just kidding. If there's some way for them to make fun of themselves.
But I think Bethesda does have that kind of sense of humor too, so I could see that. I could actually see that being in there.
Yeah.
So I think we could pretty much end this little hype set. What do you guys think the general reception of this game? I think we could go with reviews. We could talk about Metascore reviews from journalists, and also the general consistent. General thoughts of the public, us gamers. What do you guys think the general reception will be for this game?
Good question.
Yeah.
Jeff, you go first. What do you think?
Fine. I only can really. I'm just gonna throw a number on it because it is part of this. I guess whatever you call it, bullet points. I mean, I feel like it's gonna be overall positive, very, very positive. Just
From
based on
you're talking
how
about
much
reviewers now,
reviewers and stuff.
Okay.
Before I throw a number on it, I'll just say it's going to be very positive, and that's just judging based on how much people are trying not to say about the game. Because if it was that bad, we would be hearing the opposite. We would be hearing the opposite type of thing ahead of reviews.
Well,
ahead
with
of the embargo.
Redfall, remember all the leaks that happened? Right? You're this
there
game
were
sucks.
so many
before,
leaks.
Well, that was probably leaked by the developers of Redfall. They were probably letting you know this game sucks, dude. Just be prepared.
I feel like there would have been some noise. Breadcrumbs.
Let me spill the tea. Yeah. So on this one though, if it were middling, I don't think anybody would be talking about it. But the fact that it's just I don't know, the word of mouth so far, even though we're in the embargo period still, has just been so strong that there's no way.
Where people are so excited that they're playing it, they want you to know they're playing it, and they have positive things.
Exactly.
People who are reviewing it who went to Gamescom are like, I'm kind of mad at Gamescom because I'd rather be playing a game that I can't mention right now. I saw that a couple times.
Oh, I've heard that too, actually. Yeah. And I actually do think it'll be something like high 80s or something whenever we get to the Metacritic.
Okay. No,
I agree with you. I think 86 or 80. I think 85, 86.
Yeah, I think 90's generous, and I think there's enough Bethesda haters to knock that down.
That's exactly
what I think too. Yeah, I think there's going to be plenty of contention. Not overly. I don't think it's going to be deafening or overbearing, but I feel like it's going to be present. But I think for me, it sounds like most people are surprised by how much they like it. Is what I'm kind of getting. I know reviews aren't out yet. So I'm hoping this ends up being kind of a surprise story for a lot of people, and then maybe the reception ends up being pretty positive because of it. But yeah, I think some people are going to keep that score down.
Yeah, there's going to be a few
Kind of
of
like
those
the Final Fantasy 16
outlets.
folks that are like, well, you guys don't like Square games or you don't like Final Fantasy, and you're just rating them a little lower, and it lowered their aggregate score to like a high 80s, which is, to me, it's a 90s game.
The Chocobos don't look at the Chocobos from Chocobo Racing, so it's
yeah,
a 7 out of 10 or whatever.
You know.
I don't know. I don't know what Final Fantasy people are like.
Well,
I'm
and a
sorry.
lot of times people will come in
Too many
with
white people in Starfield.
really. They're all
Too
wearing
many.
spacesuits. Can't know.
We're gonna
That's a
get that.
Kotaku article already, I'm sure.
Yeah,
right?
I'm sure they've yet to
Yeah.
hit publish on it. They've already had it written.
Too many white planets.
No.
Yeah.
Here's the title.
Too many white
Anyone
people.
else notice all the Caucasian reflections on the visors? Like, there's gonna be something like that.
Yeah,
like some
something
kinda-
very minute that
yeah,
you're like,
yeah,
shut
yeah.
up. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. No, I was thinking back at games like Ghost of Tsushima, and I think about like people who kept that down at 82. I think was the Metacritic, which I'm
How
still.
crazy is that? When I think about
Absurd.
that, it makes me angry.
That is
I
like
know.
still to me the game of the year that year. That's just
So now that I'm
insane.
thinking about it, I feel like this one's probably going to be more like an 83, 84. And not because the game doesn't deserve, like you're saying with Final Fantasy 16. I think it, based on everything we're hearing and all the hype I have for it, it's probably a game that I'm going to play and be like, why isn't this in the 90s? This game's amazing.
Yeah.
But I just think there's enough
crossed.
baggage with Bethesda. There just is. There's Bethesda baggage, is what we like to call it around here.
Yeah.
I just think there's too much of that, and there's going to be a lot of, and so it's either going to be, it was like they went in with expectations too high. Like maybe you could argue some of ours are pretty high. So maybe the expectations are too high, and so they're disappointed, and they're right about that. Or it's gonna be folks who are like, well, they didn't do it like Fallout did, or like Skyrim did, or like there's gonna be some of that too. I feel like to keep it down, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
And I wonder if it ends up being kind of like Skyrim ended up being, where like on PC its Metascore is a 94, but on PlayStation 4 it's an 81. You know what I mean? So it's like, I wonder if we'll get a nice split depending on the console that people play it on. Where like PC
Wait, what was that one
players
for?
PS4 was an 81
For what?
for Skyrim.
Oh, for Skyrim. Oh, dang.
Yeah, so like if it's split, like the PC
Yeah.
players end up liking a lot more, but like console
Jeez.
players
Yeah.
maybe take it to task a little more. I don't know.
Yeah. I do think as far as public reception, you're going to have folks who, like you described earlier, maybe don't want it to fail. There are folks who want it to fail. I'm not counting them. The folks who are kind of skeptical about it, whether they like Sony more or they don't like Phil Spencer or they think Xbox keeps dropping the ball, totally fair criticism in a lot of ways. So they're going to, even if this is really great, they're going to begrudgingly be like, yeah, I'm glad it's not a total trash heap, but I'm really excited for and fill in the blank games that are coming out, Spider-Man 2 and others. Like, it's not really my thing, but good. I'm glad they didn't totally screw it up. I think there's going to be a lot of that. And so we're going to, especially if we're playing it and loving it, we're going to be like, dude, why is everyone so negative? And like, no, I think that's about as positive as some folks are going to be able to be about it, to be honest with you.
I might just take that positivity. I'm like, that's enough for me.
Yeah, that's enough. Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna think a little more positively. Yes, I know there's a lot of haters. We will see them, but I really do believe that this game is actually going to be so much better than what they've done in the past that it's actually going to blow away people that were expecting it to fail. That they are going to go a little bit higher on their scoring. I'm going to actually say their meta is going to be a 90.
All right.
I think people are going to talk
PC for Skyrim.
Yeah, I think there are going to be a lot of people that are talking about that this is up there with, Tears of the Kingdom, Baldur's Gate 3, Final Fantasy 16 as the best game of this year, and I think there's going to be a lot of 98s and 100s to kind of make up for. We all know there's going to be a 6 or 7 out there. Somebody's going to try to make a name out of this, but I think there's going to be a ton of people that are just like, you know what? It's really that good. They've made building ships easy. They've made the space combat fun. The gameplay is the best they've ever done. Because again, they're going to be comparing to what they've done prior. So if they are improving it, that's going to be in the back of a lot of people's minds as well. Like, hey, this game is objectively better than what they've ever done before. And then I think if they can have a interesting narrative, like an overall main plot that's interesting with a bunch of cool characters and a lot of subplots, side quests that you want to invest in that maybe somehow also play in the main narrative, I think you get to a place where you're like, you know what? As much as I wanted to hate on this game, or I didn't think I was going to like it as much as I ended up liking it way more, and I'm going to score it there. So I'm going to go with a 90. I do think I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I have always believed that there is a console war, and for a game like this, you are going to see a huge user base that is going to absolutely trash this game.
It'll get review bombed for sure.
You already
Yeah.
saw it on Reddit that people were.
Yeah.
I've already made 1,000 accounts to review bomb. Like start. Like those
I'm
conversations are.
hoping
The people are
that's
already like assembling to take this one down. So
Find hobbies, people.
get
Wow.
a life. Yeah, go
That
get a
is-
hug. Jesus
that's
Christ.
really
Oh,
pathetic. I do think it will get review bomb. I'm also
By
I'm
users.
not
yeah.
in as many big gaming groups as I used to be, but I'm still in groups that are a little bit bigger than our group.
There'll be
And I
some
do
chatter.
think you're gonna see it might not come out right away, but you always get the, you know what, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are just overrated.
Derek,
You
those
know,
are is
those-
it just me posts? Okay, is it just me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love. Oh my God, yeah. Talk
Is it
about
just
the
me,
thing.
or is this game not
Am
as
I
good
the
as
only one
Am
who?
I the only one?
Yeah, yeah.
And then everyone's
Yeah,
like, yeah,
dude,
you are.
You're
You are
literally
though.
the only one. Yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing I was thinking with the combat that it's got a high bar, not because in my mind, it's not because of previous Bethesda games. And if it's only compared to previous Bethesda games, I think they're gonna knock it out of the park. But when you look at it visually, I instantly think of Destiny 2 and Halo, which are
Yeah.
which is not fair. I'm not saying it's fair, but those are two of the most fun, fluid, and just well-crafted first-person shooter experiences. And so I think to me that's a pretty tough hill that they're going to have to climb is to
It
figure
is.
will it land, will it at least get close to those experiences. If it gets close to those, let's say even like it's 80 to 85% of what Halo and Destiny feel like, I think that's a home run because those games to me are pretty much perfect sci-fi
Well,
shooters.
and nobody beat like Bungie is the best at
They're the
that.
best
So
at
it's
that.
like nobody has ever usurped them or gotten close, in my opinion. Things have felt good, don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
like they're so ahead
I'm
of the game.
hoping nobody will do that just because I plan on playing this game in a third-person perspective, which you won't find in Halo, and there's only small portions of Destiny that you play in a
Right.
third-person perspective.
Yeah.
So I hope nobody would do that because
Mm.
a lot of the clips I saw was people playing in third person,
Oh,
not
okay.
just first person. So
Nice.
Cool.
they said it's improved. And so my plan is, again, I might end up doing first person. My plan is to play this like more of like a Mass Effect type game where I want to play it in a third person perspective and I want to jump around and float around and shoot things in the air and things like that. So that's what I'm hoping. That's part of where like the little bit of clips I did see, that's where my hype started coming out. I was like, dude, this looks like Mass Effect. Like this
Yeah.
looks
Yeah, and you're gonna feel that in the dialogue trees and like
Yeah.
all you guys who just played Mass Effect recently, so Jeff and Tim, like this. I feel like this is gonna feel at home in terms of just like the pacing. Hey, I just got to a new spaceport. What do? You literally talk to everybody and
Talk
get
to
quests. That's
everybody.
what you do.
Yeah.
yeah.
And go talk to
y'all
your
have been-
crewmates after a big moment. Go walk
Yeah,
around the ship and
exactly.
connect with everybody again. Yeah,
Exactly. I think that's a really good point of reference for sure.
Yeah.
And I like to bounce between first and third in the Bethesda games. I think like there are moments where it just feels better to be in third person, like walking around the town. There are certain combat moments that feel better in third person, certain that feel better in first. So it's more it kind of feels like you're the cameraman too, more cinematic when you're bouncing between two different perspectives. So
I think I had forgotten the third person thing for some reason. That just wasn't in my
Well,
head.
they've never
they're
really
bad. They're always bad.
done it
Like
very well. They're very
I don't think it's gonna be bad
janky,
here, but they've been bad in
and the
previous
movement has
games.
Oh, I
always
didn't
been like weird.
Realized it was bad before. Okay.
Yeah,
That's how little I played the other games.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like if you boot
Usually
one,
only
like
done
if you
first
go
person,
boot up
it
like
stayed
Fallout
there.
4 or something like that and put it in third person perspective, I think they did it a little bit better on Fallout 4,
it's
but
the
like
best N4, yeah, for sure.
but like Skyrim is
Skyrim and Oblivion are, and also that's another key point is that, and I don't know if this is going to mean anything to you guys, but this game is more Oblivion than Skyrim, was what Todd Howard was saying. And what that means, if y'all don't know what that means, is there's just going to be way more RPG elements and stuff like
Oh,
that.
good.
Okay.
In terms of like what the stats
Good.
that you're leaning into, like being focused on how you go through conversations and stuff like
keep
that.
turning
So,
me on, Kyle. Keep turning
yeah,
me on.
yeah. So they dropped a lot of that hardcore RPG stuff in Skyrim to make it a little more user friendly and mass appealy, whereas Oblivion is still kind of had its foot in the door of like Morrowind, which is like a hardcore RPG, you know?
Yeah.
So that's good. I thought that was good news. You know,
Yeah,
more Oblivion than Skyrim.
All right. Well, we'll be talking about this game a ton in this next episode of the Current Gen podcast. We, of course, will be fair and balanced like we always are. Okay. We always are objective.
We're the most fair
I
and
aim
balanced
to
podcast.
misinform.
We are. But yeah, this is just our chance to. I like this approach where we usually do after the fact or full on spoiler cast or something like that. We don't always take a whole separate chat just to talk about our excitement for something. So this is one of those moments. This is a huge release. This has got to be Xbox's biggest game release since.
This
Gosh,
whole
I
gen,
don't
at
know.
least,
when.
right?
It's been a while.
This whole gen at the very least,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's been a while.
I mean,
Yeah.
Forza Horizon 5 was a big one, but
I mean, like
It's a
anticipation.
big, it's a game, but like ambition
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
new and all that. Yeah.
this
I think
this
I
is
love
up
that
there
game,
with
but that's a
Halo
racing
Infinite
game,
for
so it's
me.
different. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's one of those things where there's anticipation that just isn't there for a lot of their releases.
I think
so.
there was a lot of hype for Halo Infinite. I would put it up there with that. I think this is ultimately going to be bigger, and better,
Yeah.
hopefully.
More important too to where they're gonna fall on this whole
Where they
generation.
are now, they really need a.
This is maybe the
huge
most
W.
important game they've ever put out in their whole profile, just depending on like
Yeah.
a make or break moment as being considered
Agreed.
a big hitter. You know.
Agreed.
I agree.
All right, well that does it for our current hype session. Thank you guys for taking this time out on a weeknight, on a school night. You're staying up late on a school night. Appreciate that. But yeah, well, next time we chat, we will all have played this. Well, at least I think all four of us will have played it, right?
Yeah.
We're all played
Yeah,
before.
I definitely will. But stay tuned for our Baldur's Gate 3 spoiler cast coming in 3 years.
When is that gonna happen? Yeah.
Cannot
Three
wait
years?
for that.
That's good. That's good.
Because I'm gonna be the only one that beats it within the next 3 years. So
That's probably
and
true.
I'm gonna wait patiently for you guys to join.
I'm working my way through. Working my way through.
Pencil it in.
All right. Thank you guys. Don't forget, it's okay to be hyped. Don't let the bummers get you down. See ya.
Did you say don't get the boners down?